I don't usually do same day reaction videos, and that's why I chose to wait until the day after. That's what I usually do, because I like to write down my initial thoughts, sit on them a little bit, reread them after some time, make sure I have them together in the most constructive way possible. Not only for myself, but for you guys. And with that said, we're about to get real. Everything I say here is going to be from me. This commentary is going to be a little bit different. This is how I would talk to you at a bar. Just pure thoughts, no rage bait, person to person, player of the game to player of the game. I first want to start off with, I like Joe Blackburn. I really do. I like the developers. They're genuinely good people. And as we've seen lately with some of the recent legal revelations, some of our community just forgets that. They are talented people, and they are genuinely trying hard on Destiny. The developers. I've seen it in interviews, I've seen it on Twitter, Reddit, and I've been fortunate enough to have many opportunities to speak with them personally. So first things first, they do care. They love this game in the same ways that we do. And I think that reasonable adults are going to agree with that. But with that said, as someone who's a little bit more connected than most, I feel like there's a big disconnect between their vision of the final shape and the community's understanding of it. And as a player, I want to talk about how a lot of this makes me feel. I have a lot of thoughts here. And every time we hear from them lately, it just feels like I'm left with more questions than answers. Not really big on doing hate videos for Destiny. I see a lot of those pop up. There's been a good amount the past couple weeks. I get it. They get views. So this isn't that. I don't want you to take it like that. I played Destiny since day one, and like all of you, I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on the state of the game. I'm not gonna read this thing line by line, but we're gonna do some highlights, touching on a couple things, and looking at it, there are some good things here. I will actually say out loud, this is a good thing for the game. The biggest concern, so much of this leaves me with more questions than answers, so let's get into it. We have the ritual update. This is a good thing. Essentially, complete 9 challenges in any ritual playlist, opposed to completing 3 across Vanguard, Crucible, and Gambit. Also increasing the frequency of ritual Ingram drops after completing ritual activities. And they're making the latest weapon be focusable at their respected vendor at the start of the season for the first time. Like, I'm into it. That's good. Then we have PvP, Guardians versus Guardians. And here we go. And I quote, "Thanks to the hard work of multiple teams, we've delivered several additions to PvP over the past few seasons." So out of the gate and in writing, they confirm something we've speculated for a long time. There's no dedicated PvP team. We knew that. No dedicated people to nurture, no singular team with eyes on this core experience. And that's what PvP is. It is a core experience. Instead, multiple teams are taking turns or collaborating on incremental changes to a large portion of the game. So when I say a large portion of the game, you could say that we have 3 core experiences. PvE, lots of moving parts there. Seasonal stuff, missions, exotic missions, raids, party modes, strikes, massive shakeups for the game, Solstice, Festival of the Lost. So while yes, there's basically 3 core experiences, we'll call PvE 50% of it all. So if you're at dinner, you would call it the entree. The Crucible, free-to-play aspect of Destiny 2. Let's call this 25% of the game, and we'll call it the breadsticks. Does not have a dedicated team. We're going to talk a lot more about this later. PvEVP, Gambit, the remaining 25%. This is the salad. Also, no dedicated team. Again, we're going to come on back to this later. So back to it. These teams have come together for the competitive division, multiple new game modes, revamp of Trials of Osiris, new comp and Trials rewards, Fireteam matchmaking improvements, new rotator playlists, PvP specific weapon tuning, several quality of life improvements, and more. So all of that is good. We've seen that. They made something happen. The weapons team has been impactful. I don't think anybody can deny that. We've seen perk updates. We've seen sandbox changes along with these things, like new modes, the adding of comp, some trials tweaks, like those are good things. And when I say that those are good things, I want you to think of it this way. What if those things hadn't happened at all? A lot of those modes would be even more stale than they kind of already are. So my point here is that we do need to acknowledge that some changes and updates have been made. That's important. But I also want them to notice that these updates simply aren't enough. PvP, a core experience, technically represents a third of what we can do in the universe, and a good amount of the player base plays it. They enjoy it, or at least they want to, and they see that as Joe goes on. They say the most frequent feedback is that there's just not enough new PvP content, specifically new maps. So let's just go ahead and leave out the new map part. Let's just use that as a blanket statement and sentiment. Simply put, the community has told us loud and clear, there's just not enough new PvP content. So let's break that down. In the same article, he says that our studio structure is built to support more overarching updates to PvP like the ones above, rather than focus exclusively on maps. When we do focus our resources on building new Crucible maps, it comes with a trade-off of multiple teams' bandwidth on work that contributes to a variety of experiences that players also hold dear, such as a new story, an exotic mission, core activities that make up the foundation of each season, or new destinations. So again, I'm left with more questions than answers. So all I can do is try to draw my own conclusions. At some point in the past, we had a dedicated PvP team. Someone was consistently looking at this core experience, looking at the data, and at some point, a decision was made to remove or reassign that team. We will say Marathon. We will say other projects. Then the decision was made not to replace them, but instead to spread their work across multiple teams who might deliver less frequent incremental updates. Okay, but we just said that the most frequent feedback is that there isn't enough PvP content, so I'm left with more questions and answers here. The Crucible has a very die-hard fan base, myself included. I love Bungie PvP, but to think about it, that decision, let's go back to the three main sources of content. And as we do, keep in mind, multiple teams are just part of all of this. Environment, UI, QA, dungeon team, raid team, audio, one team working on this season, another team working on the next season, another working on the big expansion, and then a team, and then a team, and then a team. So why would we revoke oversight of PvP? Here's what I think, and we will say it out loud. Destiny 2 PvP is free to play. So as I go over this, like in your mind's eye, think about this as I go on, walk down this little road of story time. Why would Bungie, let's say, these are just numbers, right? You're gonna get the gist of it. Pay a small team of 5 developers $100,000 a year to oversee the Crucible. Because that is at least $500,000 into a game mode that's only around 25% of the total game in Bungie's mind, because PvE is 50, just a small portion that generates literally $0 because it's free to play. Players are going to play it anyway because that's what they want to do. So why would I bother with a budget allocation when I can instead rotate the burden across the other teams? And the state of the Crucible and how this has gone, let's say you went to a new restaurant way back in 2014, reimagined 2016-ish. It's an Italian restaurant. They're known for their chicken parm, spaghetti, really, really good. They also have really good breadsticks. They just came out with a new salad. It's awesome. But over time, the breadsticks weren't so good anymore. The salad, not so much. But the new entrees are pretty good. They keep you coming back to the restaurant. And then we start getting to a point where the breadsticks are super stale. The salad's a day from being thrown out. And yes, that is PvP and Gambit. But then one day, and you go to this restaurant knowing, the breadsticks aren't so good. The salad isn't so good. But man, I love that chicken parm. And this has happened in real life to a lot of you. I'm sure you've gone to that restaurant, and that day, the entree wasn't good. So now the entire meal is bad. Because the restaurant knows you're coming for the entree, and the breadsticks and salad, they are what they are. So if a lot of people are complaining about the breadsticks, is that restaurant going to hire 7 new chefs to create new breadsticks and salad? Or do you think that the chef's time is better allocated for new entrees? Because that's what people come there for. Because you know what? The breadsticks and salad don't matter. They're gonna eat them anyway. So here's the kicker, and here's what really frustrates me. I know that they care, like on a heart-to-heart level. We consistently hear, sorry we can't give more PvP maps. Sorry that the updates can't come any sooner. We're trying. Look, we did a comp division. We updated some perks. The first revamp didn't do well. We revamped trials again. I believe that that is truth. They wouldn't do it at all if they did not care. So on a heart-to-heart level, they do. They want it to be good for us. The problem isn't the people, it's the money and business side that does not care. They cannot afford, or they choose not to put any dedicated resources into the Crucible, period. At some point that was established, and that decision was made, and any of you who've worked a job know that once you lose budget, you probably don't get it back. But because the Crucible PvP is a core experience, they're gonna do what they can to kind of upkeep it. And it comes in increments, quarterly, sometimes every half a year. And that's when they can. As the whole paragraph from Joe outlined, the bottom line from their side, they're doing their best with what resources they have, but he also recognized the bottom line from our side is that the best that they can isn't good enough. PvP is brutal right now, and it has been. It's been like that for a long time. Stale bread. We know it, and they know it. And this is where we're gonna get real again. At the end of the day, business-wise, those teams should be working on exotic quests. They should be working on seasonal activities because that's what makes money. And on paper, I can get behind that logic, but here's what happens in game. Here's the biggest issue with all that. We've all experienced it. With this approach, what happens if the season really sucks? Not vibing. Now, instead of just the season being lackluster, 75 to 100% of the game isn't that good. Again, not only were the breadsticks but the dinner sucked too. And at that point, it's just not fun, and at that point, a lot of people don't come back. There's no other core experience receiving dedicated attention where I can go find fun. And I never really talked about the salad that is Gambit, but that's self-explanatory. As we continue on, we see some Season 22 updates, a Vex-themed map, new game modes, and those look pretty cool. I'm sure that you've seen them. We're not going to go into detail. This video is about other things. And Joe reiterates again, essentially, that all hands are on deck, making it happen in some ways. That is a good thing. All these little updates that they're doing with the game modes, the mid-range shakeup, all those little things, if they didn't do that, we would literally have nothing. And as it sits right now, mostly, our entire Destiny experience is tied directly to a season. If the season does not do well, the game does not do well, because everything else has been backburnered. Bungie has a serious problem with ship and sit, dude. That's one of the main downfalls of Destiny, is ship and sit. You ship it and you let it sit. Instead of taking like a compartmentalized approach, making sure that PvP is enjoyable, playable, or getting Gambit that regular attention, we're just kind of stuck hoping that this next season's a banger. That cycle has to end. Moving on, Vanguard, we have medals becoming routine, so you're going to grind score. Then talk about Season 23, more being added. Additional battlegrounds coming to Nightfall and Grandmaster rotation in Seasons 22 and 23. Like I said, we're just going to have to see how all this plays out, just hope and see. Moving into Gambit, they did a revamp and then they let it sit. We ship and sit. Apparently, they're going to come back to it. And he says, although we know our Gambit fans mostly care about new or returning maps, this is an area of the game with lower engagement that would take away resources from popular parts of the game. That is clear now. We get it. And goes on, while we don't have plans to dedicate more resources to significantly transform Gambit, we do have a few updates planned for Final Shape, including porting Cathedral and Scars to the latest version of D2, as well as adding Shadow Legion and Lucent Hive enemy types. So again, in all things considered, that's good. They're doing something. But as a player here, I haven't played Gambit since Bottom Dollar and 120s were hot. I went in there because of Bottom Dollar. And I can tell you confidently, I'm not going back in there for 2 new maps and Lucent Hive. Hopefully the Gambit crowd enjoys that. It's kind of that theme that something is better than nothing, I guess. Game security. Outside of the state of the game, Bungie's been hitting like cheat services hard, like really hard. They've invested more into data science, machine learning for detection, and I believe integrity is a strong value at Bungie. I do. I mean, if there's no dedicated servers, what's even the point? Am I right? For Destiny, they did take a plunge a while back, and you look at any game like Warzone, though Warzone does do some cool things to cheaters. Like, cheating is just a never-ending hamster wheel, an ever-evolving thing. Cheaters are going to cheat, and cheat makers will make money, as is life. Bungie is trying with BattlEye. They did a large ban wave, and there were a lot of recovery accounts and a reiteration, don't give your account to strangers. Though, as far as cheating, I mean, I've seen like literal weeks on Twitter of Jake, Walla, whoever. Hey, this dude is cheating. Here's a Twitter clip. Here's the tag. It's this one. Next week, here's the same dude again. It's the same tag, doing the same thing. And then the next week, hey, it's them again. So, like, while I do hear them say, we're working on it, I believe that they're working on it. I just don't understand how instances like these don't get worked out. Again, something's better than nothing, but it just doesn't feel like enough. And truth be told, cheating's why I play on console. Like, you don't think I want to play Destiny, like, with max settings at times, with a centered crosshair? Keep that in mind. Console doesn't even have a centered crosshair on your screen. It's been years, I don't know why that hasn't been fixed. It's slightly lower than normal. But for me, it takes a lot of the fun out of it. Like, I do not want to touch the game when I see people flying around. It's unbearable for me. On console, don't have those types of issues. Stability update, long story short, it's getting better with a focus on detecting and helping stability issues. And look, like, that's a fight that they have, we can't do anything about. I'm glad that they brought it up. Keep bringing it up. Hopefully they iron it out just right. That's their fight, not ours. Seasonal structure. Sounds like it's going to be changing a little bit. More to learn in the showcase later this month, but a quick preview. Quality of life upgrades, cosmetic favoring, transmats are going to be unlocks. Those are all good things. Stasis aspects and fragments, move to the vendor system, new strand aspects. Like, again, these are good things. As I stated in the opening, there are good things in here. We can't deny that. We have exotic armor reworks, part 2, dev insight later next week. And I would expect Mask of the Quiet One gets a buff, Lion Ramp, Foe Tracer, things like that. And also, I expect the talks of the PvP crowd to get adjusted one way or another. Antaeus Ward nerf or rework, Stompy buff or rework, Kara's Spine nerf or rework, things like that. That's what I'm expecting. And there's things like the matchmaking. Like, dude, this paragraph, I've seen this paragraph 10 times. If we have to keep changing the matchmaking, what exactly are we changing and why aren't we getting there? Because with Destiny, I've assumed I can't play with my friends in the Crucible. That's just where we are. That's where we have been. They're a little bit lesser skill. Just do what you do to the matchmaking, make it right. We'll go from there. New weapon subfamilies. We'll get a look at these on August 22nd at the showcase. Weapon tuning. We've known about that mid-range normalization. That's going to be fun and interesting. I am so looking forward to that. And then he starts speaking about reinforced goals, bringing the challenge back to D2, expanding players' imaginations, enriching content. We have the Pathfinder replace core ritual bounties. We're going to see how all of that plays out. Pathfinder is going to be involved with the new destination and final shape. LFG Season 22 is coming. That's a good thing. Armor set rewards, like they walked back on these. No longer going to be plans for every expansion. Maybe it's just a time thing. Again, we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know the why. But as a player, what we do know, grand scheme, the cool sets go in Eververse. The base sets are just ritual. But at some point, and I'm going to talk about this more in depth here in a moment, like we really do need to understand the why. Because in a lot of cases, like I don't understand what we're doing, where the game's going, where my money as a consumer is going, why I should continue to recommend the game to newer players if I do recommend the game. And as I said, Bungie does need to do a better job of helping us understand the why. Let's remember and respect, they don't have to. And after what the community leads, devs have been going through, have been through, I'm entirely supportive of them. I get it. Over a video game that we all do love and are passionate about. I've been hated on, had seriously vile things said to me, about me, whatever, for years. I get it. But on Bungie's front, keeping things a little bit more close-knit, if that's the road that they choose, they do also understand that with that, we also have to recognize that approach is creating a little bit of a vacuum where we're starting to see a lot more negative sentiments pop up because we have nothing to go off of. And people flock to it, man. It's so much easier to be negative and hateful than to be optimistic. So here's a big part of all of this from me. Some thoughts and feelings as a whole. And we'll start with these things that I believe are core experiences. Like, let's start with the comment here. Season 22 will include new ways to experience key in-game moments in Destiny 2's history to help get millions of Guardians caught up for the confrontation with the Witness. Like, that's cool. That's awesome. And we read that, and then I see on Twitter, Dev Insights, Reddit, interviews. It's all kittens and rainbows. Bungie gets bought out for $3.6 billion by Sony. Everything's going great, not a care in the world. But on my end, you just told me that PvP and Gambit aren't really going to be touched unless maybe you can swing it because you don't really have the resources to support those core aspects that I enjoy and that many enjoy. And that's the disconnect that I'm talking about. And that follow-up of, we're going to have these new ways to experience key in-game moments in Destiny 2's history to help get millions of Guardians caught up for the confrontation with Witness. Like, with a straight face, are we not going to bring up the industry's worst meme of a new player experience in Destiny 2? Are we not going to do that? Not bring that up? Are we going to ship that and make it sit? Everyone that I've talked to, multiple posts on Reddit, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I do this? I want to play Destiny. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go. Continuously, we see this pattern. Something ships, then it sits. And to me, that is Bungie's biggest problem. The ship and sit approach, I'd rather you not ship it than let it sit for 6 months or 8 months. Because if we grow attached to that, it's even worse. A la PvP, a la Gambit, salad and breadsticks. I've had multiple people ask me, hey, I want to get into Destiny. And the absolute first thing I say is no. That's not because I'm saying that the game sucks or because I'm a hater. I tell them no because there's no real clear path for them. It's a nightmare. They're so far behind that when they start getting into the thick of it, it gets even more confusing. So I say, yeah, you can get into Destiny 2. And if you like it, that's awesome. It is a great game, but you're going to be very lost. And there's going to be a huge learning curve. As you go on, you're going to start having new issues that come up. Like, look at this. When you go to Steam, look at the add-ons. $414 worth of Destiny 2 content. Without the silver bundles, we're looking at more than $300. So let's just assume that a new player doesn't even know what silver is. The first thing you see is a $414 price tag. Doesn't exactly scream free to play, does it? Then, when you actually dig into all of this, whatever this is, we have the expansions, the Witch Queen, Beyond Light, Shadowkeep. All of them have varying prices. Once you get past that, you find the Legacy Collection for $60. So again, I'm asking for help and understanding of the why. Why is it like this? Where is that money going? Why is each season combined $75, but sold as a trio for $60? At the very least, why aren't they $20 a piece? I'm a day one veteran of this game. It's impossible to explain. So how is someone new to the game gonna make any sense of this? Like, the 30th anniversary pack is $25, Forsaken is $20, so $55, but when you bundle them together, they're $30. So why not make them 15 a piece? There's simply no way you can expect any new player to look at this, know what to do, how to wisely spend their money when they're looking at a $414 price tag. And then when they get in the game, Xur's gonna bring a weapon. I don't have that. They might get excited, but instead it's grayed out. Says, you know what? You need the Forsaken pack. Well, they go to the Forsaken pack, it's $20. They buy that not knowing they could spend $30 to get the 30th anniversary. You see what I'm saying? Then not to mention, you want this, you can't do that. You need the dungeon key. Then we start going into other things like, why did the season switch to 1200 silver? And you can only buy silver in increments of next up being 2000. Do you see that we see this, Bungie? Like, none of this is good. And this is a small, like very small, ongoing problem of why people aren't hyped, of why people are getting mad, and why people can't really confidently recommend the game anymore. It's too convoluted. And the things that made you fall in love with the game keep having their waves of ups and downs. And those of us have been here since the price hike. We, as players, are wondering, like, what we're getting for it. When you announced that price hike of a season, the game couldn't stay online for more than 4 hours. Constant server issues, emergency maintenance, the slowly just decaying of the Crucible. Like, what are we gaining with that price hike as a player? Like, what benefits are we getting here? Because yesterday, it was told that we're not getting a dedicated PvP or Gambit team. It was told that 2 of these 3 core experiences don't have the resources to support them, really. So the money that is extra isn't going to develop those things. Like, it's just so confusing and frustrating. Because as a player, again, the Crucible, steadily deteriorating. And when it's just okay, an emphasis on those 2 core experiences saying they made it happen, but because lots of teams came together, took time away from doing the other things. Sorry about that. What are we supposed to think of all that, dude? It's not a good look. I'm sure internally it's like a triumphant thing. Let's say you don't have a PvP team. Just think about it. There's no PvP team, there's no Gambit team. But you know what? They have their own nodes. There's 50,000 people playing it, 100,000 people playing it, peak times. You know, we're getting the hundreds of thousands. We got to do something. So you know what? We're going to take you, we're going to take you, we're going to work together, we're going to collaborate. We're going to overcome this. We're going to make this happen for the players. And I'm sure that it feels great on the inside. But as a player on the outside, it doesn't feel as good as you think that it does. Yes, we appreciate it, of course. Because again, something's better than nothing. Help us understand why. Because why is that biggest question for me. We don't know what we don't know, and I don't blame Bungie for like not being completely open with their communication right now. Not one bit. That's fine. Again, if you've seen the news over the past month or so, can you blame them? But again, that vacuum has been brutal. It's going to continue to be brutal. And I said it once, I'm going to say it again. As a player, it's so hard. We don't understand why these decisions have been made, why there's no dedicated PvP team, why this price increase, why that, why this experience. Completely left in the dark. And this indication of kittens and rainbows and fun and happy times. And yelling Bungie on Twitter, like the community doesn't feel that, okay? They do not feel that. It's the why, and as a player base, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know if Destiny is going to be done after Final Shape, how or if it's continuing. We continually just see players' favorite things get dusted. They sit. We continue to be told it's okay. This Band-Aid has been applied. Destiny has issues. So where I'm going to kind of close here. Now, again, more questions and answers. The main question is, will that showcase answer some of these questions? They have a whole bunch of info that they know about that we know nothing about. Because we don't know what we don't know, and I sure hope they have something up their sleeves. I genuinely love Destiny. I love this game. It's a game like no other, and I want it to get back to that. And I want to believe them when they say, combined with everything we're about to show on August 22nd and everything yet to come, will create the best gameplay experience for the widest possible audiences that Destiny 2 has ever seen. The Final Shape is incredibly special to us as the culmination of Destiny's first decade, and we're committed to making it just as special for all our players worldwide as the showdown with the Witness approaches. I would love for that to be true. If you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. Let's talk about this down below. This is a little bit different from me. It definitely needs to be talked about. I do love the game. The game has a ton of issues, and all of us want them either helped or fixed. Let's talk about it down below. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am Cool Guy.